Hello there, and a very warm welcome to MoodleMoot. My name is Justin Earle, and I work for Solent University. I'm a team leader for our learning technology advisors. So we're like the front line of learning technology at Solent. We operate a help desk and support Moodle for staff and students, as well as supporting other learning technologies. So today I'd like to talk about how using Moodle to add value and reduce resources. So lessons and revelations from moving the student induction online. So a little bit of background about Solent. We've got approximately 9,000 students made up of a mixture of undergraduate, postgraduate. We now do some apprenticeships, and we have Warsash Maritime Academy, so we have maritime cadets and professional qualifications as well. About 2/3 of our students are under the age of 21, and quite a large percentage are UK based, with a smaller amount from the EU and non-EU countries. And we get approximately 3,000 new students each year, depending on the demographic for the age group. So as Mark Lee and Gail Dawson suggested in 2010, student inductions into the use of learning technology in higher education are traditionally very resource intensive, sometimes overwhelming for the student, and it is often difficult to measure the level of engagement. And at Solent, traditionally, our induction delivery was done through timetabled sessions. So these would be 20-minute sessions in which we would have students booked into computer areas where they could be taught using PowerPoint or on-screen PowerPoint and have their questions answered in person by a learning technologies representative. These sessions had to run concurrently due to the number of students we had to see throughout the whole induction or welcome week. So some of the problems with the traditional delivery: students have a lot to take in during welcome week. So some of them are left home for the first time, or they've moved out for the first time, or they may be in a new area, or even just a new institution and new systems to learn. Obviously, as I've mentioned, it is very resource intensive to do the delivery in this one-to-one function in the classroom. Sometimes it also requires a physical handout because students who are unprepared would need to know where to go to find the resource online. It doesn't cater for particularly different learning styles either, and it's very difficult to monitor any success or engagement in the sessions itself. So in 2017, we looked at moving to our online platform, Solent Online Learning, which is our branded version of Moodle. We kept the timetabled sessions, but we went for a blended delivery. So we took the first part in session itself and walked the students through the induction, and then made a secondary part with more complex information that they worked on externally as and when they needed it once they started learning. The idea being we could give them the absolute basics within the induction, and then they could go away and learn more themselves. We made each section or each part of the induction badged using gamification so that we can increase engagement in each part. That result in 2017 was very good engagement. So 71% of first degree students that year enrolled onto the induction page, and 82% of those completed the badge for part one. So the badges were rated by asking questions to make sure that they had understood the central parts of the content. 10%, however, completed part two. So this shows a very large drop-off when left to their own devices and not guided through the session. We did get very good feedback, however. So we asked, did they get everything they wanted to know? And most people responded yes. We also asked, do you know where to find help? Again, a very important thing for students moving forward. And the vast majority of them said yes, they knew where to find the help afterwards. And the difficulty was rated at easy, with a few saying too easy, and a few average difficulty. Now we move on to 2018. So we continued with the online delivery, but this time no timetabled sessions. There were options for workshops for those who felt that they couldn't do an online induction on themselves or needed a little bit extra technical help as they joined the university. We put a video resource on our front-facing public webpage, Hello Uni, explaining how the students can log in and how to get to the resource. This was also heavily advertised on site at our help desks, but however, the result was poor engagement. So only 13% of first degree students enrolled onto the induction page. Now we did have bigger engagement of those that did actually enroll. So 60% got the badge for part 1, and there was a slight increase as well on the badge for part 2. So what were the reasons behind this? Well, students saw it as optional or non-directed and felt that it wasn't important or something that they had to engage in. Some of them were expecting session at the university itself, and so didn't again see it as important for their own learning. And perhaps not visible enough, although we did put this onto the external facing website, maybe enough students weren't directed here. So 2019, we continued with the online delivery, and again, we did not schedule sessions, but we implemented feedback that we got about the induction itself and how we could improve it, which was largely cosmetic. We then attended Welcome Week course sessions. So these are like large lecture theatres with an entire course arriving with their induction for the week. We would get a slot in there that we could speak to them. And we were a little bit more directed towards the induction, making it more of an expectation rather than an optional choice. Again, we heavily advertised on the help desk and via email. And we messaged users with reminders in Moodle itself. So we saw an improvement there, and we got a jump up to 40% of first degree students enrolled onto the induction page. The badging was largely the same though, so a 56% on part 1 and again 25% on part 2, so very similar to the year before. If we look at the engagement measured by the percentage of first degree students awarded badges, we can look in 2017, we obviously had 58%, so a very high amount getting the part 1, but part 2 very, very low. And then we had the massive dip the year after, and then we can see that the projection's on the way up again. But the part 2 badges as a percentage of first degree students has actually increased. As part of our service, we have a physical help desk and now, due to COVID, a virtual help desk as well. And over the last few years, we've been collecting a lot of statistics using Microsoft Forms. So we can find out what actually happened to the inquiries at that time. So our form will determine what the type of query it was, so what area it was related to, who the customer was, what the touch points, so were they coming to us via email or in person or on the telephone, and whether we managed to resolve or escalate the issue. And this has been invaluable in looking at successes of the induction. So if we look at overall inquiries between 2018 to 19, unfortunately we didn't have the statistics in 2017, we can see an overall decrease in the number of inquiries. So it dropped 9% in total, but students actually dropped by 12%, and non-students, so primarily service and academic staff, dropped just by a smaller amount, by 4%. We can look at the changes in the inquiry type as well. So for students, we can see that account and Wi-Fi questions dropped by about 30%. Digital skills increased, and a lot of the other figures were quite low. So probably the percentages are not very conclusive. Although a miscellaneous option did drop by 51%. For staff, there was no real big jump because, again, the figures were too low to really deduce anything from. But from Solent Online Learning to the Moodle platform, the figures did drop, going from 2018 to 2019. We can look at the different contact points as well, and we can see that there wasn't a great change in the contact point itself, especially for staff. It was very, very even between 2018 and 19, but students, we could see, emailed us more and came to us less in person, and they also telephoned us more. So this could be a consequence of our details becoming more visible via the induction. So in summary, our induction engagement actually increased between 2018 to 19 by 183%. And I think largely this was due to the Welcome Week course. So not having that contact at all in 2018 really dropped off the levels, but we managed to bring them back up again by meeting the students in person, although in a lecture theatre situation. Also, chasing students with reminder emails has helped. Our point for review is to try and increase engagement in badges. We did have inquiries decrease, mainly overall by 9%, mainly student inquiries 12%. And there is a small possibility that this was related to a reduction in staffing. We did have a very small reduction in staffing numbers between 18 and 19. Or the induction providing the information may have stopped the number of typical frequently asked questions. The student inquiries themselves, there were less account questions, Wi-Fi questions, and hardware questions, and more about digital skills and Solent Online Learning. And it's possible it's because they know where to come for help earlier in the term. Staff inquiries were largely the same. The figures, again, too small to reveal anything. Although Solent Online Learning and assessment queries were down. This could be related to staff engagement tactics such as workshops that we ran concurrently as well. In the contact point, as I mentioned, no real significant change. Students tend to use the phone and email more and in person less. It could also be a consequence of having fewer desk hours. So for future plans, accessibility has obviously been very important with the new legislation this year. We're looking at overhauling the induction to cater for this and to be a lot more accessible in general. We're looking at continuing engagement and trying to push up those numbers of percentages that are taking the badges themselves. And we've implemented feedback taken from 2019. Obviously, COVID-19 has played a very important part this year, and students are being forced more into an online environment in general. So it may be that this in itself is going to encourage them to use the resource more than perhaps we could just by our advertising and induction alone. So thank you very much for your time listening today.